Hi, everybody. This is Konstantin with OxiMedical. I am here with our guru and Joe Brady. Something we've been talking about over the last couple podcasts. It's sort of more focusing on your wellness and how to be better and practice that. We were just having a really fun conversation with Joe and Chris, who does our podcast behind the scenes. And, Joe, this is a topic that I think I'm super interested in. Chris is interested in, and I think over the last year and a half, people have had the most time in their home, and I think they've figured out how can you stay healthy. And I think one of the most interesting topics and something that you are extremely credentialed in and something that people would love to hear, what are some of your recommended natural medicine therapies? And, how do you recommend folks approach that and be prepared and have this ready as a staple in their kitchen cabinet? Maybe you can start off with telling us about some immune boosting stuff and how you can boost your immunity with some of your favorite therapies.
Very good, very good. And again, a timely subject in that we're in the middle of cold and flu season here in Colorado. But to back it up a little bit, rather than therapies, to start talking with one of the most important things for immune function is physical activity. And so I want to state that right off the top. One of the things they have discovered with COVID is people that were physically active did much better if they caught COVID. When you look at the ones that were hospitalized, especially when you look at the deaths from COVID, the greatest majority of those cases were in people that were sedentary and obese, quite frankly. We had one gentleman here in Denver that was so obese that even though his oxygen levels were getting better, every time they tried to take him off a respirator, he was carrying too much weight and they could not get him to breathe on his own. He ended up spending 3 months in the hospital on a respirator, not because of the COVID, although that's what put him there in the first place. But even after he got rid of the COVID, the extra weight he was carrying made it almost impossible for them to take him off a ventilator until 3 months later when he had lost enough weight to be able to breathe on his own again. And so the physical activity is crucial. When your body is strong, and that includes your immune function. And so when you're physically active, while you're physically active, your immune system actually dips down a little bit. But then when you exercise properly and you then rest, your immune system then comes back up and comes back much higher. Another one that people don't think of in terms of immune function, in Chinese medicine, which I do, one of the major herbs for boosting immune function is water. The main way that your body works germs and viruses and bacteria out of your body is through the hydraulics, through your drinking. We were talking a little bit about before in that many times with COVID, for example, people will get so sick that they stop drinking fluids. In which case, now that cytokine storm goes haywire and they start getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And many times they got to put them in a hospital and put them on an IV solution just to force the fluids into them, which is fortunate that in Western medicine we can do that and we can force the fluids into somebody. But when it comes to your normal common cold and stuff, people need to realize that water is actually an herb and a major one for immune function and washing stuff out of your body.
What about like green tea or a juice? Can someone just say drink like 3 cups of orange juice a day and they're hydrated? We want folks to really understand when you say water, what about electrolytes or something?
So water doesn't have to be just plain water. Talking about the electrolytes, I know one of the nutritionists up at CU in Boulder should recommend for electrolytes just adding a few slices of lemon into the water. It makes it tastier, and also you get a little bit of vitamin C, and you also get your electrolytes. The only thing that doesn't count are things that are diuretics. So coffee, if you drink nothing but coffee, by the end of the day, you're going to lose more fluids than you're taking in. Tea is a little bit of a diuretic, not nearly as much so as coffee. And so with tea, if you like drinking tea, that's fine. Just make sure that you're drinking a little something extra elsewise other than just the tea. Otherwise, over a long enough period of time, it also will act as a diuretic. Sodas, for example, that contain caffeine will act as a diuretic. And what a diuretic does, it makes you pee more, so you end up peeing more out than you're taking in, and little by little you'll get yourself dehydrated. But any of the juices count, just watch your calories. Again, probably the easiest thing is just plain water with a few slices of lemon in it to give it a little bit more taste, and also that little bit of vitamin C. And that begins to get into the dietary things that you can do. I think everybody knows or is hip to the fact now that your diet plays a major role in immune function. Even Dr. Anthony Fauci, when it came to COVID, they asked him about vitamins for preventing COVID, and they're not going to prevent it. But people with high levels of vitamin C tend to have stronger immune systems, and they handle colds and flus and viruses better. High levels of vitamin E in the body help to fight off colds. And so even Anthony Fauci was recommending that people use some vitamin C and some vitamin E in their diet. And it's preferred that you get it from actually like eating fruits and veggies, in which case you're not just getting the vitamin C, you're not just getting the vitamin E, but you're getting literally thousands of other healthy compounds that come in that. The vitamin C in the orange is the one we have done the most research on. But there's lots of other compounds in that orange that are also good for your health. Phytochemicals, the peel is particularly rich in antioxidants and phytochemicals. That's why citrus peels are actually an herb in Chinese medicine. When it comes to Chinese medicine, for boosting immune function, there's an herbal formula called jade windscreen. And that's what they'll use a lot in Asia. And the main herb in that formula is Wong Qi, or astragalus. And in Western research during the 80s, when AIDS was a real problem before they had the drug cocktails, they did a lot of research on immune function in those days. And they found that the astragalus, or Wong Qi, was actually a good, strong immune system stimulant. Another one they found in those days was chicken soup. Jewish penicillin. It may not cure it, but it couldn't hurt. And what they found is there's two amino acids in chicken, arginine and ornithine, that are also strong immune system stimulants. And so in China, for example, as you head into cold and flu season, many elderly or older adults in China that are high risk for colds and flus and stuff, they'll automatically start drinking chicken soup as an automatic part of lunch or dinner at this time of year. Obviously, if you wait until you're sick as a dog, chicken soup ain't going to help a whole lot. It may make you feel better, but it ain't going to help a whole lot. It works much better as a preventive in order to keep the mucus in the nose and the air passages moist. That makes it easier for your body to expel stuff. And then, again, if you're adding a decent number of veggies in there, your body needs the extra nutrition when you're ill. These things work much better as a preventive than they do as a treatment once you actually get sick. With COVID, I've had to treat a lot of patients that would call me up in a panic every time they catch a cold. And also, I've treated about 40 different COVID patients now remotely, not in person. And one of the best, Western doctors call it the cold buster tea. And one of the best things people can do to have on hand in cold and flu season is ginger, honey, and lemon tea. It will make you feel better quickly. I've even had it with COVID patients, get them to feel better. Now, don't want anybody to misunderstand. This is not a cure for COVID. Don't get angry phone calls coming in. It's not a cure for COVID. But it will help people feel better fairly quickly and hopefully achieve what the Chinese called the three nothings. In Chinese medicine with the herbs, we don't try to cure COVID. What we try to achieve is the three nothings. That nobody get any sicker than when they first come to me, that no one spreads it to anybody else, and nobody goes to the hospital. And so far, knock on wood, we've been able to achieve that. Again, that's not a cure, but it's something that people can. In the West here for COVID, Western doctors would tell people, unless you're so sick you need to go to the hospital, just take care of yourself at home. But they wouldn't really give a whole lot of advice as to how to do that when you treat yourself at home. And so people don't appreciate the importance of keeping fluids going in your body, the importance of having some nutrition. Get some chicken soup, get some vitamin C in you. Your body needs the extra energy in order to fight any kind of cold or flu or, God forbid, COVID.
Some of the things I think you just pointed out, I want folks to kind of understand. When you do a more whole plant approach, things work synergistically together. One of the things that you mentioned, particularly in the chicken soup, and this is something that was discussed earlier a couple of weeks ago. You can go buy the arginine and you can take the arginine, but in a capsule form, most of that you're just going to pee out in the bathroom, right? Because you're not really going to use what you need.
Yeah.
You need to get it in what you're recommending in a healthier diet where it is associated with other minerals and vitamins that help and work together.
And the fluids that are contained in the soup and the breathing, the vapor that comes off of it to moisten the air passages, make it easier for your body to clear it. Now, our ancestors thought about the world in different ways, but they weren't stupid. Chicken soup, in the especially Jewish community, has received the reputation that it has because it's got a number of arguably very effective ways to help your body get rid of a cold, to help your body get rid of a flu. Again, it's not like it's a cure, like it's a drug, but your body's got to fight these things, and it needs certain nutrients to be able to do that. And it needs it in a way that, like you're saying, is more holistic, so to speak. And we forget that plants also have to make antibodies to deal with flus and viruses and that sort of thing. They live in the same world we do.
Yeah.
And they have to have their own mechanisms for dealing with that. I was just reading this morning, they're completing a study on making COVID vaccines from natural products.
Right.
Things like, and it's interesting, but they're using tobacco plants. Right. Tobacco plants are very hardy plants, and they make lots of antibodies. And we're learning finally in biochemistry how to teach them to make specific antibodies, in which case there's a great hope in the future for being able to quickly produce vaccines using the natural mechanisms in plants. But people can already take advantage of that. I mean, how many times have you heard from your doctor to eat a complete balanced diet, to eat your veggies?
Right.
There's a reason they tell you that.
Yeah.
These are important parts of immune functions. Most doctors don't start with that because usually by the time you're so sick you go to the doctor, you need stronger medicine than that. But for the average person, if you're looking to prevent stuff, these are the ways that you prevent getting sick.
And I think you bring up a lot of very good, interesting tips. So kind of going over, there's very variety, different things you can do to immune boost, right? That's probably one of those hip words that are out and about these days is immune boosting this, immune boosting that. Well, let's just say that you have a cold, or let's just say that, you're dealing with a seasonal whatever's going around. We were just talking, my kids, Chris's kids, everyone's kind of had this seasonal cold because those do still exist. And what is a good recommendation if you are starting to feel like you're under the weather, or like, hey, I think I've got a cold, or that you may get a cold because someone in the household has it? What can our folks maybe have in their kitchen cabinet now, or the next grocery trip? What are some very inexpensive things that they can be prepared to have?
Again, probably the biggest thing I could recommend is the ginger, honey, and lemon tea.
Can you give us the recipe for your...
So what you do is you take a few slices of fresh ginger, simmer them in some boiling water for about 15, 20 minutes.
How much water?
Enough to cover the herbs.
Okay.
Yeah, enough to cover what you put in.
So not like
pot.
the whole pot, just something enough
just
to
enough
cover.
to cover it.
Okay.
Yeah. And simmer for about 15, 20 minutes, and then add honey and lemon to taste. The ginger is probably the most researched herb in the world. And they found that it does have very good antiviral, antibacterial qualities. It also is particularly useful for settling an upset stomach. A lot of research has been done on its effects on stopping vomiting and stopping nausea, and it works very well. The honey is a natural expectorant. In fact, you're going to see now that they've made dextromethorphan illegal, they're phasing that out. The cough medicine people, where you buy your cough medicine down at Walgreens, they're going back to what your grandmother used to do. You use honey.
Now, can you point out something that I'm very passionate about? Can you please explain what kind of honey? We're not talking about the honey in the little bear that they sell at the store, because that's not honey, right?
Well, there's different levels of nutrient content in honey. And obviously the strongest level of nutrient density in the honey is the honey that you get naturally from the farmers in your area.
So local honey with no additives.
Yeah,
that's the best kind of honey that you want to get.
Yeah.
Not the
now,
golden
again, when
bear.
you buy Robitussin and they're switching to honey, they're just going to use generic honey. But like anything else, if you buy fresh homegrown tomatoes from your own neighborhood, they've got a lot higher nutrient content than tomatoes that were grown in Brazil 6 months ago before they reach you. And the same thing, anytime you process anything, you lose a little bit of its nutrient value. Still has some value as a natural expectorant, but the more natural and kind of homegrown honey that you get in the immediate area would have a higher nutrient density quality to it, some more nutrients for it. Do you have a particular brand that you like?
So, being blessed to live in Colorado, we have a really vast community of, beekeepers and different forms. My recommendation is to go to a local health store, maybe a Vitamin Cottage or a local supermarket, and ask them for a local honey. I think it's kind of hard to recommend a local honey that is going to be nationwide for folks that are across the map, but something that you can ask for, a local honey. I think another really good aspect these days is social media for our folks that are connected, in Facebook, or maybe someone through church or through family. Ask a family friend if they know someone who harvests local honey. You'll find that local honey is not this liquid syrup. It's a little bit more thick and a little bit more dense and something that is the least processed. So when folks go and buy ginger, okay, we get the honey and we get natural fresh lemons. What do we do next?
So again, if you simmer the ginger for about 15-20 minutes, add the honey to taste, and so you make it sweet enough. Again, the ginger's a little bit on the spicy side, and the honey will kind of tame that a little bit. And then the citrus peels particularly, but lemon slices, act to cut the phlegm so that it loosens the phlegm and makes it much easier for your body to expectorate it. And so that helps to kind of your body's natural mechanism for getting germs out of your throat, which is where most cold and flu viruses breed, is in your throat. And so the honey and lemon help to loosen it up so it's easier to expectorate. And again, the honey acts as a natural expectorant to help your body get rid of the stuff.
We drink this how many times a day?
Oh, as often as you like.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, again, that's one of the nice things about natural approaches is that you don't have to be too precise about it. You can get whatever particular kind of honey you like. You can get whatever ginger is available in the neighborhood, and you can drink it all day long.
And we make this tea, we're using the water that is boiled from the ginger, or
yes.
Okay. So we use the water boiled from the ginger. We use maybe 1 or 2 slices of lemon. We use a couple slices of
teaspoon of honey,
some ginger, teaspoon of honey, and that is our tea.
Yeah.
And we will have that available up on the podcast. We'll call that Joe's favorite cold buster tea for folks.
Oh, there you go.
So
just so everybody knows, I didn't invent that. It's been around for like 500 years.
We'll just say that it's your...
Yeah, no, it's mine.
Your modifier. Yeah. I've personally actually, a couple months ago when we were working some old podcasts, this is some recipe that I've used along with my family and myself. So I highly recommend that. Joe, so, we kind of just touch base a little bit if someone catches a cold or a flu. You got a quick tip there. Give us some quick tips, or what is your must-have things to have in the cabinet if you are trying to be preventative. Maybe try to just stay more preventative during the winter months when natural or more available fruits aren't as much as easy to get. What are some staples to have in the cabinet? Ginger is one that you mentioned.
Ginger is one, honey, lemon, obviously. Also a little bit of vitamin C. Vitamin E is really good, some multivitamins perhaps. And so that kind of good general nutrition in general is useful. And then one in Chinese medicine, there's an herb called banlangen that's a very strong antiviral. Was not effective against COVID, but it is effective against most common colds. And so it's an easy way. These days, it's hard to tell the difference between if you've got a cold or if you got COVID. Everybody panics. And so that everything that you can do. Again, I would strongly recommend that people keep up their physical activity level as we head into winter. Everybody's been way too sedentary since COVID started, and that depletes immune function. The other thing is what we've discussed in other podcasts is stress depletes immune function. And so have things over the holidays as we go into cold and flu season, have specific strategies that you use to be able to blow off some steam. Whatever you happen to like. We've talked about meditation. We've talked about physical activity. We've talked about reading books. Whatever is your particular cup of tea for dealing with stress, and that helps keep your immune system in good shape. If you put that together with some of the precautions we've taken for COVID, the masks have made last flu season a very mild flu season. The social distancing makes a difference. Frankly, at this point, I'm so used to wearing a mask, I got to wonder why I ever let all these people breathe on me in the first place. But hopefully, as we head out of this thing, people will be a little bit more free. When there's a high risk of flu in your particular community, people should be wearing masks when they're out in public. They've done that for the last, 7 centuries in Asia. And hopefully in the United States, that'll become a little bit more common, particularly if you've got a cold. I think in the world to come, it's going to be considered absolutely rude to be out in public when you've got a cold and coughing and sneezing and you're not wearing a mask.
Yeah, I think one of the things before the pandemic, we were doing a delivery to one of our patients in National Jewish, and this is before COVID existed. I've kind of had a little bit of shell shock. I walked into National Jewish and everybody had a mask. For you folks that don't know, National Jewish is one of the leading respiratory institutions and hospitals in America and even the world, anything related to COPD and asthma, and they were handing out masks to anybody that was immune compromised. And I think that is something that the more we pick up on, the more we realize, even if it maybe didn't help you, it might help not giving it to someone else. So,
yes. And it's absolutely shocking to me that people have arguments about it. When you go get surgery, does anybody question why the doctor's wearing a mask when he's cutting you open? Or is that just considered standard operating procedure at this point?
Right. Well, Joe, thank you so much for sharing some of your wisdom, some of your teachings. We'll have Joe's recommended immune boosting techniques and some of his teachings that we just discussed on our podcast. And then we'll have Joe's famous tea. Joe, we might have to trademark that and start bottling that before it gets popular. But again, as always, if anybody has any questions, we'll have a way to reach out to Joe. You guys can reach out to us. And we hope you guys have a good holiday season, and we'll see you soon. Joe, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks again. Thanks for having me.